Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Oasis and I am the owner of A Transactional Support. We are a transaction coordination company operating in California, and there have been a lot of changes in the industry and I have been keeping up on everything. So I have been writing a lot of blogs about the changes that the NAR settlement is making, especially in California, as CAR releases different advisories and different explanations of how some of these changes will impact the real estate agents. I am writing blogs to kind of break that down. So here is one of the blogs that I've recently written. It goes over the changes that are going to take place because of the NAR settlement when we are talking about open houses. And so that has been a big question for agents, and the National Association of Realtors and the California Association of Realtors really hadn't made it clear whether or not an open house was going to constitute a potential buyer having to sign a buyer broker representation agreement just to view the open house. And we all know what a big change that would be for open house structures, as agents are just used to letting people come and go as they please. Some agents make people sign the sign-in sheets, but not all agents even do that. NAR did come out with kind of a cheat sheet that broke down would be required when people came into an open house after the start date of the NAR settlement rules of August 17th. It originally was going to be sooner, but then it got pushed back. I imagine that they're not ready to implement all these changes. The MLSs need more time to change their rules and structure. But I just wanted to go over what that said and how I kind of broke that down in my blog so that it made sense. And this blog, obviously, I will link below in the description so that you can come back to this and kind of read over it so that you make sure that you have the correct structure in place for your open houses. One of the questions that was answered was whether or not listing agents can hold their homes open. I never doubted that that was going to be the case. Yes, listing agents can hold their own open houses open. Other agents at their brokerage can hold their homes open. The Department of Real Estate and CAR do not like when an agent from another brokerage holds a listing agent's house open. So like if you're at Coldwell Banker, you can't hold Keller Williams open houses. They want it to be within the same brokerage just so that the broker can have that oversight. We make sure that we have good insurance coverage and that the house is being marketed appropriately, basically following what the brokerage or the broker would want done for that open house. So yes, listing agents can still hold open houses. The question about whether or not people would need to sign the BRBC to enter the open house really does depend on the type of working relationship that person entering the open house intends on entering into with the agent that's holding the open. There are a couple options here. So this person could already be represented by another agent and they're just coming to the open house to view the property. In this case, it is recommended that you use the form Open House Visitor Non-Agency Disclosure and sign-in form. This is going to be a card form that you'll have access to that basically says that this buyer is coming into the property or potential buyers coming into the property and they're not represented by you, the person holding the open house. They already have another agent or they just have no intention on working with you at all. There is another option, which is limited representation, especially if you're the listing agent and a buyer that is unrepresented is coming in to see the property. They could potentially like it. Maybe they immediately look around and they know that they are going to be, open to maybe writing an offer on this property. Then they do have the option to sign a limited property representation and broker compensation agreement. Again, these forms will be available by that rollout date. This is a non-exclusive agreement. It lasts for a maximum of 30 days. It's just basically a very short agreement to say, hey, you're coming into this open house. If you want to write an offer on this property, I now have some type of agency with you to write that offer and perform this duty for you as an agent for this particular property. Now, in all reality, you could still use the buyer broker representation and compensation agreement as it sits now for that same purpose. You could just type in this one address. You could just write in a week or less or a couple of days on that representation agreement and just make it very, very short. But they will be releasing this additional form so that it's, I guess, easier for potential buyers to see. This is a different document. It's easier to complete. Probably doesn't have as many options as the buyer broker representation agreement does now. So then if you run into a buyer and you guys are maybe having a great conversation and they want full representation from you, then you have the option, obviously, to just use the buyer representation and broker compensation agreement, that BRBC. That is the form that a lot of you are probably now getting familiar with. And this can last up to 3 months. They don't like those extended periods, especially for buyer representation agreements. It has been recommended that you don't add like a broad spectrum of areas or price points, like $1 up to $3 million. You really want to try to narrow it down so that that contract does have some validity if there is ever a question as to whether or not you're going to be paid, or if there's a procuring cause situation that comes up later on. So the more you can narrow that down without making it too difficult for yourself to, I guess, make it make sense. With the BRBC, you can make modifications to the agreement after you've written the agreement. A lot of people are using this to, raise or reduce their commission after they've already signed the agreement, and there may be changes to what the seller is willing to pay in compensation. They may want their buyer to cover that cost. They may be willing to lower the rate that they initially agreed to with the buyer. So a lot of people are using the modification of current terms to change the terms on the buyer representation broker compensation agreement. You can also extend this period. So although NAR is recommending that this time period initially doesn't go for longer than 3 months, you can extend it just like you can extend a listing agreement as well. You'll just have to add some additional documentation around that. The buyer broker representation agreement can also be exclusive or it can be non-exclusive. So keep that in mind. The standard form is actually non-exclusive. You have to check a box, a couple different spaces, and really customize the form to what you intend, what your buyer is looking for when they are, selecting their agent and when you're helping them. So make sure you take the time to get really familiar with that form. If you just sign it as it is non-exclusive. They could, walk into an open house just like they always could and just work with a listing agent on another transaction after you've been maybe showing them houses for months. So that's definitely something that I know all the agents that I help to assist want to avoid. You're probably going to want to have all these forms, just depending on what that buyer wants to do with you. Maybe some people will just get in the habit of signing the open house visitor non-agency disclosure and sign in. That's the one most people are probably going to lean towards because it's just non-committal. It allows people to go in and see the property, and it's almost just like a sign-in sheet. Depending on who is coming into the property, it's definitely going to be a good opportunity for you to actually talk to the people in the open house. I know when I used to do open houses back when I was selling, sometimes it's hard to pin people down and get them to even talk to you at all while they're in the open house. Maybe they just want to say, hey, I'm just looking, and they want to kind of avoid you like they're in a clothing store. And so this will be a good opportunity for you. And I think this will actually make open houses more fruitful for the agents that choose to hold them. So talk to your broker. I'm sure brokers are going to roll out maybe some additional forms, maybe their own directive on exactly how they want their agents to handle these new changes. Make sure that you're in touch with your broker. Just stay in the loop, go to the office meetings and as much as you can, and maybe go to some local association meetings and make sure that you're getting all the information as these changes roll out. And utilize any technology that becomes available. I know a lot of agents use apps that help them manage their sign-ins from open houses and maybe automate some follow-up around that. So I have sent out a couple messages to some of those different platforms to see how they're going to handle these changes and structure with open houses to see if they're going to help facilitate some of the signing of these documents within their systems so that you can still automate everything and just streamline the entire process. So just in general, adapting to all this is going to take time. It's going to take time to train the consumers on what these differences are, how they're going to be doing business moving forward. In general, I am always trying my best to be a resource and stay up on everything. So if you want this information sent directly to your inbox, feel free to go to my blog and subscribe. In addition, if you're ever in need of a transaction coordinators in general, especially the transaction coordinators that I have here with me at Aid or that I refer business to, definitely stay up to date on these things so they are a resource for you if you're ever wondering what is going on. We know where to find those answers for you. So if you're in need of a TC, please reach out. I will also leave my number here below in the description box so that you guys have an easy and quick way to get in touch with me. And I will be back for more reviews. There's a lot of new documents coming out, so I'm going to try my best to review those documents with you guys and kind of walk through. I get the opportunity to listen to a lot of the different brokers and their legal advisors about how they are guiding their agents through these different changes and how to use these documents to the best of their ability. And so my goal is to share that with you guys, especially for those of you that may be with smaller brokerages or independent brokers that may not have access to all of those resources. If you have any more questions about this topic, please leave a comment, subscribe if you like this content and you want more of this information, and I will be back. All right, well, thank you for watching. Bye-bye now.